Harlan invited his son home for the summer, hoping to rebuild their strained relationship after his first wife's passing. I set the table that evening, trying to be supportive, arranging plates with care. The house smelled like roasted chicken and rosemary. I'd cooked his favorite meal, wanting everything perfect for this reunion. Then the front door opened, and I heard a voice that made my blood freeze. My ex, Cole, walked in, stopped mid-step, and smirked like he'd just won a lottery. Our eyes locked. His widened with recognition, then narrowed with something darker. Harlan hugged him, oblivious to the tension crackling between us. We sat down to eat, and within 10 minutes, Cole leaned back casually and said, "So Dad, did she tell you how she climbed the corporate ladder?" "Horizontally, mostly." The fork slipped from my hand. Harlan's stunned silence sliced into me harder than Cole's words. My hands shook under the table. In that moment, I understood completely. This summer wouldn't be about reconciliation. It would be war. And Cole had fired the first shot before I'd even realized we were on a battlefield. That night, I confronted Harlan in our bedroom. My voice trembled as I asked why he didn't defend me. He sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing his temples. "I was shocked," he said quietly. "I'm trying to process this." But I noticed something else in his eyes. Fear. He was terrified of losing his son again after losing his wife. When I told him Cole was lying, that we'd dated years ago and it ended badly, Harlan looked at me with doubt I'd never seen before. "Just give me time," he whispered. Those 4 words hurt more than Cole's insult. They meant he wasn't sure who to believe. His dead wife's son or his living wife. I walked out of the room, closing the door softly behind me. The hallway felt colder than usual. I realized then that I was truly on my own in this house. Harlan's grief had blinded him, and Cole knew exactly how to exploit that weakness. I leaned against the wall, trying to steady my breathing. This wasn't just about defending myself anymore. It was about survival. I woke up to 17 emails from coworkers asking why I'd sent out an incomplete financial report. Panic flooded through me. I didn't send anything. When I checked the file, someone had edited it from my login the night before. The timestamp showed 9:47 p.m., the exact moment I was downstairs cleaning after dinner. My stomach dropped. I scrolled through the document, finding deliberate errors that made me look incompetent. Numbers transposed, sections deleted, formulas broken. It was sabotage, careful and calculated. Cole strolled into the kitchen that morning with coffee, humming a tune, eyes too bright and smug. He glanced at my laptop screen and smiled. "Rough morning?" he asked innocently. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened a new folder and began taking screenshots. Every edit, every timestamp, every detail. My hands were steady now. If Cole wanted to play dirty, he'd learn that I didn't fight with anger. I fought with evidence. And I was very, very good at collecting it. He thought he'd won the first round. He had no idea the game had just begun. Harlan's daughter Mira used to adore me. She'd text me funny memes during work hours and ask for advice about college applications. But that morning, she barely said hello. She poured cereal into a bowl, eyes fixed on the counter, avoiding mine completely. When I asked if everything was okay, she mumbled, "Fine," and left the kitchen. Cole sat in the corner, scrolling through his phone, a small smile playing on his lips. Later, I cornered Mira in the hallway. "What's going on?" I asked gently. She looked at me with confusion and hurt. "Some things I heard," she said carefully. "About you and Cole. About how you treated him back then." My chest tightened. "What did he tell you?" She shook her head. "Just that you should already know." Her tone was cold, distant. She walked away before I could explain. Cole had gotten to her first, planting seeds of doubt. And she believed him. I stood there alone, realizing he wasn't just attacking me. He was isolating me, turning the entire family against me, one person at a time. It was strategic, methodical, and terrifyingly effective. I walked past the study and heard crying. Actual sobbing. I paused outside the door and listened. Cole's voice broke as he spoke to Harlan. "She's trying to replace Mom," he said through tears. "She's erasing her from this house. From our lives." Silence followed, then Harlan's shaky voice. "Son, I don't think she means to." But doubt lingered in his tone. I pushed the door open quietly. Cole looked up, tears streaming down his face, eyes red and puffy. He was good. Too good. Harlan sat beside him, hand on his shoulder, looking tortured. When Cole left the room, brushing past me without a word, Harlan wouldn't meet my eyes. He gave me this look, half apology, half accusation, like he wanted to believe me but couldn't. I realized then that Cole understood his father's grief better than anyone. He knew exactly which wounds to press, which memories to invoke. Harlan's late wife was Cole's shield, and he wielded her memory like a weapon. And Harlan, drowning in guilt and loss, couldn't see through the manipulation. I was fighting a ghost. And ghosts always win in a grieving man's heart. At work, I prepared for the quarterly review, running numbers and cross-checking accounts. That's when I noticed discrepancies in one of the accounts Cole supposedly helped manage. Thousands of dollars missing. Small withdrawals, spread out over months, designed to go unnoticed. My pulse quickened as I traced the timeline. The withdrawals started months before I even married Harlan. This wasn't about me. Cole had been stealing long before I entered the picture. I printed every transaction, every bank statement, every suspicious transfer. The pages stacked up on my desk like evidence in a courtroom. I locked them in my bottom drawer, the one only I had the key to. Cole thought he was hunting me, setting traps, destroying my reputation. He didn't realize he'd already hung himself with a rope I'd just found. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the locked drawer. For the first time since Cole walked through that door, I smiled. Not from happiness, but from certainty. Someone was about to fall. And it wouldn't be me. Cole cornered me upstairs late one night when everyone was asleep. I'd gone to get water, and he appeared in the hallway, blocking my path. He leaned in close, smirking, breath smelling faintly of whiskey. "I'm going to convince Dad you married him for money," he whispered. "And when I'm done, you'll be thrown out with nothing." He paused, enjoying my silence. "I'll tell him what you used to be like. My version of it." The threat hung between us. He was talking about our past, about things he could twist, distort, weaponize. He expected rage. Expected me to push him, yell, break down. Instead, I stood perfectly still. My face blank, my breathing steady. The silence confused him. His smirk faltered slightly. "Nothing to say?" he asked. I looked directly into his eyes. "Not yet." Then I walked past him, shoulder brushing his, and went back to bed. In the darkness, I heard him hesitate in the hallway, unsure. Good. Let him wonder. Quiet was where I was strongest. And he'd just learned that. The next morning, I updated my resume. I reconnected with old colleagues on professional networks, sending brief messages about catching up. Within days, I had 3 interviews scheduled at competitor companies. All offered better positions, higher salaries, more respect. I told no one. Not Harlan, not Mira, certainly not Cole. If Cole wanted me out of the company, he'd discover too late that I walked out by choice. With my skills, my reputation intact, and something he desperately needed. Leverage. Information. Proof. I scheduled the interviews during lunch breaks, dressed carefully, and presented myself as the competent professional I'd always been. Each company was impressed. One made an offer on the spot. I asked for time to consider, thanking them politely. On my drive home, I felt lighter. Having options meant having power. Cole thought he was trapping me in a corner. He didn't understand that I'd already built an exit door. And when I walked through it, I'd be taking pieces of his world with me. The game was shifting. And I was 3 moves ahead. Mira came into my room one evening, eyes red from crying. She closed the door behind her and sat on the edge of my bed. Cole told me things about you, she said quietly. He said you cheated on him. That you used him for career leverage. That you're the reason he spiraled in college. Her voice cracked. I don't know who to believe anymore. I sat beside her, not too close, giving her space. I won't pressure you, I said gently. But someday, you'll see the truth on your own. And when you do, I'll still be here. She looked at me, searching my face for deception. Finding none, she softened. Just a little. Enough to matter. He's my brother, she whispered. I know, I replied. And that's why this is hard. She nodded and left quietly. That small crack in Cole's influence was significant. Mira was smart, observant. She'd start noticing inconsistencies in his stories. And when she did, the whole structure he'd built would begin to crumble. I just had to wait. Patience was my strongest weapon. And Cole was running out of time. I set a trap. A simple one. I created a monitored decoy email account and sent myself a fake financial report with a deliberate error. I marked it as high priority, knowing Cole monitored my work emails. Within hours, the file was edited incorrectly. Someone logged in as me, changed numbers, deleted sections, and saved it. But this time, I had full trace logs. Every keystroke, every edit, every device identifier. The edits came from Cole's laptop. His IP address, his device ID, his fingerprints all over my digital crime scene. I saved everything to an encrypted cloud folder, backed it up twice, and printed copies. This was my first piece of undeniable proof. Not circumstantial, not emotional. Hard, technical evidence that even Harlan couldn't dismiss. I stared at the screen, watching the logs populate in real time. Cole thought he was tech-savvy. He wasn't. He was sloppy, overconfident, and careless. And that overconfidence would be his downfall. I closed my laptop and went downstairs for dinner, acting as if nothing had changed. But everything had. The trap was set. And Cole had walked right into it. I found a printed photo of Harlan's first wife on my desk at home. Face down. On the back, someone had written in black marker, "You'll never be her." My hands trembled as I held it. The handwriting was careful, deliberate, meant to wound. I looked up and saw Mira watching from the hallway, eyes wide with guilt and fear. She stepped forward slowly. "I didn't put that there," she whispered. Her voice was certain. I believed her. "I know," I said quietly. She swallowed hard. "He's been in your office." I nodded. Cole had access to the house, to my space, to everything. He'd planted this like a bomb, timed to detonate when I was most vulnerable. But it backfired. Because Mira saw it. And now she knew her brother was capable of cruelty she'd never imagined. She came closer, taking the photo gently from my hands. "I'm sorry," she said, "for believing him." I touched her shoulder. "It's not your fault. He's very good at this." She nodded, tears forming. "Can I help you?" she asked. "Yes," I said. And with that single word, Cole lost his most valuable ally. Digging deeper into the financial records, I discovered a second account. One that only Harlan and his late wife should have known about. It was a trust account, set up for their children's future, protected and private. But someone had been draining it. Small amounts at first, then larger sums. The signature on the withdrawal forms looked like Harlan's, but something was off. I pulled samples of Cole's handwriting from old birthday cards Mira gave me. The loops matched. The slant matched. The pressure matched. Cole had forged his father's signature and stolen from his own family. From his dead mother's legacy. My stomach turned. This wasn't just betrayal toward me. It was betrayal toward everyone. I printed everything, added it to my growing file of evidence, and locked it away. Harlan needed to see this. But not yet. Timing mattered. If I presented it too early, Cole could spin another story, manipulate another emotion. I had to wait until the perfect moment. When Cole felt safest. When his guard was down. When the truth would hit hardest. I tried to tell Harlan about the suspicious transactions one afternoon. We were alone in his office, and I thought it was the right time. But before I could finish explaining, he cut me off. Cole told me you'd do this, he said tiredly. That you'd dig for dirt to push him out. His words felt like a slap. You believe him? I asked, voice barely steady. He rubbed his face. I don't know what to believe anymore. But I'm disappointed, honestly. He's my son. My chest ached. The man I married, the man I loved, was choosing a lie over the truth because grief made him blind. For a moment, I almost broke. Almost cried. Almost begged him to listen. But something inside me hardened. If he wouldn't believe words, he'd believe evidence. Cold, undeniable, irrefutable evidence. I stood up. When you're ready to see the truth, let me know. Then I walked out. His voice called after me, but I didn't turn back. That night, I made a decision. I'd stop trying to convince him. I'd show him. At the quarterly review. In front of everyone. Where Cole couldn't run, couldn't lie, couldn't hide. The job offer came through officially. Higher salary, better benefits, a leadership position at a competitor firm. They wanted me to start in 6 weeks. I stared at the contract on my screen, cursor hovering over the accept button. Leaving would be easy. Clean. I could walk away from Cole, from the tension, from the battle. But revenge wasn't about running. It was about precision. And I wasn't done. Not yet. I saved the offer letter in a private folder and replied, asking for 2 more weeks to decide. They agreed. That bought me time. Time to execute the plan I'd been carefully building. Time to make sure Cole faced every consequence he'd earned. I closed my laptop and looked around the office I'd worked so hard to earn. Leaving without drama was tempting. But staying long enough to watch Cole's world collapse. That was necessary. Not for revenge. For justice. For everyone he'd hurt, everyone he'd manipulated, everyone he'd stolen from. I wasn't leaving until the truth came out. And when it did, I'd walk away with my head high. On my terms. Not his. Mira came to me 3 days later, shaking. She'd overheard Cole on the phone with a friend, bragging about getting rid of me. He called Harlan easy to manipulate and laughed about how grief made people stupid. Myra's face was pale, her hands trembling. I can't believe I defended him, she whispered. I hugged her tightly. It's not your fault. He grew up learning how to twist people's emotions. He's very good at it. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. Can I help you expose him? I nodded. Yes. I need access to his things. Old documents, papers, anything he's kept over the years. She hesitated only a moment, then agreed. That weekend, while Cole was out, Mira led me to the storage room in the basement. Boxes stacked high, labeled with years and names. We opened them carefully, searching through Cole's past. Old report cards, college papers, receipts. And then Mira found it. A letter, yellowed with age, in his mother's handwriting. She read it aloud, voice breaking. And everything changed. The letter was dated 2 months before Harlan's first wife passed away. Her handwriting was shaky but clear. My dearest Cole, it began. I'm writing this because I'm afraid. Afraid of what you've become. The gambling, the lies, the forged documents. I found the papers you hid. I know what you've been doing. Myra's voice cracked as she continued reading. I fear you will harm the family legacy if you don't stop. Your father doesn't see it because he loves you blindly. But I see it. And it breaks my heart. The letter ended with a plea for him to seek help, to change, to be honest. Mira looked at me, tears streaming down her face. She knew, she whispered. She knew he was broken, and she tried to warn him. I held the letter carefully, understanding its weight. Cole hadn't spiraled after his mother's death. He'd been spiraling for years. And she died knowing her son was destroying himself and everyone around him. This letter was more than evidence. It was a mother's final attempt to save her child. And Cole had ignored it, hidden it, buried it with her memory. The quarterly review arrived. The conference room filled with executives, department heads, and stakeholders. I arrived early, setting up my laptop, connecting to the projector. My hands were steady. Cole walked in looking confident, almost cocky. He'd prepared several reports, each one designed to highlight my supposed incompetence. Harlan sat at the head of the table, looking tired and older than usual. The meeting began. Cole presented first, his voice smooth and professional. He pointed out errors in financial reports, missed deadlines, budget miscalculations, all of them tied to my name. I stayed silent, taking notes, letting him build his case. Executives glanced at me with concern. Harlan's face grew more troubled with each slide. Cole was performing beautifully, painting me as the problem that needed removing. When he finished, he sat down with a satisfied smile. Then it was my turn. I stood slowly, connected my laptop to the projector, and pulled up the first file. "Thank you, Cole, for that presentation," I said calmly. "Now let me show you who really made those errors." The room went silent. Cole's smile faded. And the storm I'd been preparing finally broke. I projected the transaction logs on the screen. Every edit, every login, every file tampering clearly documented. The timestamps appeared in bright red. The device IDs matched Cole's laptop, his phone, his tablet. The room went deathly quiet. Executives leaned forward, squinting at the data. Cole's face drained of color. "These errors you highlighted," I continued steadily, "were all edited from your devices. Not mine. The timestamps show you accessing my accounts while I was elsewhere. I have security footage confirming my location during each incident." I clicked to the next slide. Video clips played, showing me in meetings, in the cafeteria, at my desk while the edits occurred miles away on Cole's devices. Harlan's hands gripped the table edge, knuckles white. Cole stood abruptly. "This is fake. She's framing me. She probably hired someone to hack my accounts." His voice cracked. I stayed calm. "The IP addresses trace directly to this building. To your office. On days you were the only one with access." Gasps filled the room. Cole stuttered, pointing at me, voice rising. "She's lying. She's always been a liar. She's manipulating all of you." But his panic betrayed him. For the first time, he looked genuinely afraid. Before Harlan could speak, I dropped the second bombshell. "There's more," I said quietly. I pulled up the trust account transactions. Cole has also been withdrawing money from a protected family trust, using a forged signature. I displayed the withdrawal forms side by side with samples of Harlan's real signature and Cole's handwriting. The differences were subtle but clear. An executive in the back whispered something to his colleague. Another took off her glasses, shaking her head. Harlan stood slowly, face ashen, eyes locked on the screen. "That account," he said hoarsely. "Only my late wife and I knew about that account." I nodded. "Cole found it. And he's been draining it for over a year. $37,000 total." The number echoed in the silent room. Mira stood in the doorway. I hadn't noticed her arrive, holding the letter. She walked forward and placed it on the table in front of her father. "Mom knew," she said, voice shaking. "She wrote this before she died. She knew what he was doing." Cole tried to run. Actually tried to leave the room. But two security officers stood at the door. I'd alerted them before the meeting started. Back home, the house felt like a funeral. Harlan sat in the living room, head in his hands, shoulders shaking. Mira cried beside him, the letter still clutched in her fingers. Cole was gone, escorted out by security, banned from the company pending a full investigation. I stood in the doorway, unsure if I belonged in this moment of family grief. Harlan looked up at me, eyes red and devastated. "I failed you," he whispered. "I let him manipulate me. I chose him over you when you were telling the truth all along." His voice broke. "I'm so sorry." Mira nodded through her tears. "He played us all. He used Mom's memory like a weapon." She looked at me with guilt and regret. "I should have believed you." I sat down across from them. He was very good at this. He'd been practicing for years. Harlan wiped his face. "What do I do now?" I took a breath. "You hold him accountable. You stop protecting him from consequences. You let him face what he's done." Silence settled. Heavy but necessary. For the first time, the truth sat between us with no lies covering it. Cole showed up 3 days later. The doorbell rang during dinner, and there he stood in the rain, soaked and desperate. Harlan refused to answer, so I did. Cole looked at me with pleading eyes. "Please," he begged. "Fix this. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. I'll tell the truth if you help me." I stared at the boy I'd once dated, the boy who'd broken my heart and tried to destroy my life. He hadn't changed. He'd just gotten better at hiding. "No," I said simply. "You wrote your own consequences." He grabbed the door frame. "I'll lose everything." "You already did," I replied. "The moment you chose lies over honesty." His face twisted with anger, then desperation again. "I was trying to protect my father from you." I almost laughed. "You were protecting yourself. From accountability." Harlan appeared behind me. "Leave," he told his son. "And don't come back until you're ready to face what you've done." Cole looked between us, realizing he'd lost. Completely. He turned and walked into the rain. I closed the door. Harlan touched my shoulder, a gesture of gratitude and apology. We stood there in silence, watching through the window as Cole disappeared into the storm. Harlan asked me to stay, to rebuild with him, to fix what Cole had broken. We sat on the back porch, evening air cool and quiet. "I know I don't deserve it," he said, "but I want to try. With you. Properly this time." I looked at the man I'd married, seeing him clearly for the first time in months. I still cared for him. But the months of dismissal, of doubt, of choosing his son's lies over my truth had left scars. "I need time," I said honestly. He nodded without argument. "I understand. Take all the time you need." That was different. Before, he would have pressured, convinced, promised. Now he simply accepted, respected my boundary. It was a small thing, but it mattered. "I'm not leaving," I clarified. "But I need us to be equals. No more blind loyalty to anyone. No more dismissing what I say because it's inconvenient." He reached for my hand. "Equal footing. I promise." I let him hold my hand, feeling the weight of everything we'd been through. The battle was over. But healing would take longer. And for once, I was willing to wait. Not because I had to, but because I chose to. The investigation revealed more than anyone expected. Cole hadn't just been stealing recently. He'd been manipulating financial records since before his mother died. Falsifying documents, creating fake expenses, siphoning money from company accounts. The forensic accountant presented findings that made even the lawyers pause. Over $90,000 across 3 years. Harlan sat in the office, listening to the report, face empty of emotion. When it finished, he asked one question. Did the stress of discovering this contribute to my wife's decline? The accountant hesitated. It's possible. The timeline suggests she found discrepancies shortly before her health worsened. Harlan closed his eyes. The son he'd worshipped, defended, and protected had contributed to the stress that worsened his mother's condition. Cole's final letter from her wasn't a blessing. It was a warning. One he'd ignored completely. Mira sobbed when she heard. I held her while Harlan sat alone, processing the weight of betrayal that went deeper than money. It went to the core of their family, their grief, their loss. Everything Cole touched turned to poison. And he'd touched everything. I started my new job the following month. The office was bright, modern, filled with people who valued competence over politics. My first day, the team lead asked for my opinion on a project. And they actually listened, implemented my suggestions, thanked me for my insight. It felt strange at first. Being respected without having to fight for it. Being valued without constantly proving myself. The company asked me to lead a major project within my first week. Something I'd never have been allowed to do while being undermined at Harlan's business. I accepted, and the project launched successfully ahead of schedule. My team celebrated. I received recognition. And for the first time in years, my competence stood on its own without someone trying to tear it down. The freedom felt like air after drowning. I'd spent so long fighting Cole, defending myself, collecting evidence, that I'd forgotten what it felt like to simply work. To be good at something. To be appreciated. This was what I'd earned. Not through manipulation or shortcuts. Through skill, patience, and refusing to break. And it felt powerful. Real. Mine. Cole faced charges for financial fraud. Multiple counts. The evidence was overwhelming. Harlan didn't try to protect him this time. He let justice proceed naturally. One afternoon, Harlan asked if I'd still consider being in his life. We sat in the same cafe where he'd first asked me to dinner years ago. Full circle. I'll stay, I told him. But on equal footing. With boundaries. With truth. No more secrets. No more blind loyalty to anyone over evidence. He nodded. I agree. Completely. We rebuilt carefully. Slowly. Attending therapy together, learning to communicate, establishing trust that had been shattered. Mira became an ally, a friend, someone who understood the cost of blind family loyalty. She started her own journey of healing. Cole, meanwhile, faced every consequence of his choices. The courts, the family, the company. No one rescued him this time. Not because we were cruel, but because enabling him had only made things worse. As I stood in my new apartment, boxes unpacked, sunlight streaming through clean windows, I realized something important. I wasn't anyone's replacement. Not anyone's victim. Not anyone's target. I was simply the woman who refused to break. Who collected evidence instead of screaming. Who played the long game. And won. If you've ever had to walk away from the people who broke you, know this. You're not alone in this. And you're not cruel for choosing your peace. If this story hits you, explore the Reddit Revenge Stories playlist for more true stories like mine. And don't forget to subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss the next story.